Thank you all for coming to commemorate the 1-year anniversary of our roleplay community. We've got speeches, performances, and
Leroy Jenkins.
Who invited raiders into this?
Someone trained a world boss into the event. It's killing everyone.
Surprise! Your boring RP just got interesting.
Everyone scatter! Get away from the boss!
They're camping the respawn point. They're killing us as we resurrect.
This is hilarious. Look at them scrambling.
Okay, everyone moves to the backup location we discussed. We can continue there. Alright, we've relocated. Let's try to continue the ceremony.
Found you! Round 2!
We're in your Discord. Genius. Heard everything.
That's it. Event's cancelled. I'm sorry, everyone. We can't do this with them hunting us.
3 months of planning, destroyed in 20 minutes.
You're welcome for the content.
Welcome back to MMO Madness Behind the Troll Mask. I'm Boss Mode, and today we're talking about event sabotage. When trolls deliberately target and destroy community celebrations, memorials, and special moments. These attacks hit different because they're not about gameplay or advantage or competition. They're about destroying joy for the sake of destruction. Let's explore why people do this and the damage it causes. Before we get into the infamous stories, let's understand what drives someone to specifically target and ruin community events. Because this isn't random griefing, it's calculated destruction of moments people care about. The thing about event sabotage that makes it particularly cruel is the effort calculation. Someone spent weeks or months organizing an event. Dozens or hundreds of people cleared their schedules to attend. The community invested emotionally in making something special happen, and the saboteur destroys it all in minutes with relative little effort. The damage to effort ratio is incredibly efficient for the troll's perspective. I've talked to enough event saboteurs over the years to understand their motivations, and they generally fall into a few categories. Some do it for the audience reaction. There's something visceral about seeing 100 people's plans dissolve into chaos. The saboteur gets to be the center of attention, the person who disrupted everyone's carefully laid out plans. In their mind, they're the main character of this story and everyone else is reacting to them. Others see it as a philosophical stance against what they perceive as Care Bear gameplay. Role players having weddings, communities holding memorials, people doing non-combat social activities. To these trolls, this isn't real gaming. They see themselves as reminding everyone that this is a game with combat and conflict, not a social platform. They're enforcing their vision of what the game should be by destroying alternatives. Then there's the comedy angle. Some saboteurs genuinely think it's funny. The absurdity of crashing a fake wedding with a raid boss. The chaos of turning the memorial into a PvP bloodbath. To them, this is peak comedy. They're not being malicious in their own minds, they're being hilarious. The fact that the targets don't find it funny is part of the joke. There's also the power trip element. Being able to single-handedly ruin something that took a community weeks to plan demonstrates power. You couldn't organize something this well attended yourself, but you can destroy what others built. That's a dark kind of power, but it's power nonetheless. Some saboteurs are motivated by ideology or faction loyalty. In games with faction conflicts, disrupting the enemy's faction's event is seen as a legitimate warfare. The other faction wants to have their fun. Denied. It's competitive griefing dressed up as factional pride. And occasionally, event sabotage is personal. Someone has a grudge against the organizers or the community hosting the event. Maybe they got kicked from that guild. Maybe they had drama with someone involved. Ruining the event is revenge. It's targeted harassment using the event as the weapon. What makes event sabotage particularly effective as griefing is that it has an audience. Random world PvP ganking affects one person. Event sabotage affects everyone who planned to attend, everyone who spent time organizing, and everyone who just wanted to participate in something special. The grief multiplies across the entire community. The saboteur also knows they're hitting people when they're emotionally vulnerable. Events like memorial services or farewell parties have real emotional weight. People aren't in competitive gaming mode, they're in sharing a moment with friends mode. That makes the violation feel more personal, more hurtful. The saboteur is weaponizing that vulnerability. And here's the thing that really makes event sabotage insidious. It's often technically allowed by game mechanics. You're not hacking, you're not exploiting bugs. You're using intended game systems, boss training, PvP flagging, area effect abilities in ways the developers probably didn't anticipate. So you're causing massive harm while remaining within the technical rules of the game. Let's get into some of the infamous cases, the event sabotages that became legendary in their communities and sometimes across the entire MMO world. I have to start with probably the most famous event sabotage in MMO history. This happened in World of Warcraft back in 2006. A player had died in real life and their guild organized an in-game memorial service in Winter Spring. This was a real person who died, and the community wanted to honor them in the game they loved. The guild announced the memorial publicly and chose to hold it in a contested PvP zone. They asked people to respectfully not attack during the service. They wanted to trust the community to honor something sacred. The guild Serenity now saw this as an opportunity. They organized a full raid, showed up at the memorial, and massacred everyone attending. It wasn't a quick gank. They systematically killed every attendee, camped the graveyard, and prevented anyone from resurrecting peacefully. The video of this raid became one of the most controversial pieces of WoW content ever created. The WoW community split down the middle. Half said it was a disgusting disrespect of a real person's death and the community's grief. Half said if you hold an event in a PvP zone, PvP is fair game, and asking for immunity is unreasonable. Serenity now defended it by saying they were just playing the game as intended. PvP happened in a PvP zone. The memorial organizers knew the risk. If they wanted safety, they should have held it somewhere else. But the memorial organizers counted that some things should be sacred, that the community should have been able to trust each other for an hour to honor someone who died. The fact that Serenity now couldn't extend that basic decency said everything about them. This incident is still debated almost 20 years later. It's the definitive example of ethics of event sabotage, where the lines between game mechanics and human decency. Final Fantasy has a huge role-playing community. One of the most popular RP venues was a nightclub in Linza Lominza. Player run, decorated with housing items, regular events with DJs and performances. It was beloved. One night during a packed event with over 100 attendees, a group of griefers showed up. They used every tool available to disrupt. Spell effects covering the screen, mammoth mounts blocking views, constant trade requests to every attendee, and macro spam in every chat channel. But it got darker. The griefers had done research. They'd found the real-life social media of some of the organizers and attendees. They started spamming personal information in chat. Real names, locations, photos. This went from in-game griefing to actual doxing. The event collapsed into panic. People started reporting and blocking, but the griefers had prepared multiple alt accounts. As fast as one got banned, another appeared. They planned this operation extensively. Square Enix eventually banned all the accounts involved, but the damage was done. The nightclub was shut down permanently. The organizers didn't feel safe anymore. Several community members quit Final Fantasy entirely because they had been doxxed. This shows how event sabotage can cross from annoying griefing into actual criminal harassment when bad actors decide to escalate. ESO has a rich role-playing community in the Cyrodiil zone. One guild organized a massive cross-faction RP event, a peace summit between the alliances. This required extensive coordination since the factions are normally enemies. The organizers chose a specific location, set the rules for the RP, and invited over 100 players. All three factions showed up in good faith to participate in the storyline they'd created together. Then a PvP guild got wind of it. They saw this was a perfect opportunity. 100 enemies standing around, not expecting combat. They organized a full raid and attack. The thing is, this wasn't even standard PvP, this was slaughter. The RP participants weren't in PvP builds or mindsets. They were in costumes and using emotes. The attackers killed everyone, camped the respawns, and prevented the event from continuing. The PvP guild defended themselves, saying this was Cyrodiil, the PvP zone. PvP is always on. If you don't want to be attacked, don't go to a PvP zone. The game mechanics allowed it, so it was legitimate. But the RP community argued that context matters. Yes, Cyrodiil is a PvP zone, but deliberately targeting a community event organized by people from multiple factions wasn't standard PvP. It was griefing dressed up as factional combat. The ESO community was divided, much like WoW's funeral debate. Some said the RPers should have known better than to host in a PvP zone. Others said the attackers should have had the decency to let the event happen. Guild War II has world bosses that appear on timers. One group of griefers figured out they could train these bosses into city zones during community festivals. These weren't areas where bosses normally spawned. The griefers were exploiting pathing mechanics to drag them there. During a major player-organized festival in Lion's Arch, a world boss suddenly appeared in the middle of the event. It wasn't supposed to be there, but the game's mechanics allowed it to follow players. The boss's AoE abilities killed everyone at the festival. The griefers didn't stop there. They kept training bosses into the event space every time people tried to restart. The festival organizers moved to a different zone. The griefers followed and did it again. ArenaNet eventually patched the game so bosses couldn't be trained into these spaces anymore. But the festival was already ruined, and the organizers never tried to host another one. The griefers had won. Old school RuneScape had a community event honoring a player who'd passed away from cancer. The community gathered in Falador for a moment of silence and to share memories. Bot operators saw this as an opportunity. They unleashed hundreds of spam bots into the area, all spamming gold-selling advertisements and nonsense text. The chat was completely unreadable. Any attempt to share memories or have meaningful conversation was drowned out. The community tried to move to a different location. The bots followed. Someone was controlling them in real time. Every time the community found a new spot, within minutes it was flooded with bots. Jagex eventually banned the bots, but not before the memorial was completely disrupted. The community never got their moment of peace. Someone had deliberately weaponized spam bots against a cancer memorial. That's a level of cruelty that goes beyond normal trolling. That's targeting genuine human grief for entertainment. BDO has a wedding system where players can get married with big ceremonies. One couple spent months planning an elaborate wedding with hundreds of guests, performers, and coordinated activities. A rival guild decided to crash it. BDO has siege weapons and PvP mechanics, and the wedding was in a contestable area. The rival guild brought cannons, siege towers, and a full war party. They didn't just attack and leave. They laid siege to the wedding venue for hours, preventing anyone from gathering safely. Every time guests tried to assemble, artillery fire scattered them. The wedding couldn't happen. The couple and their guild argued this was a personal grudge being executed through event sabotage. The attacking guild said it was legitimate PvP in a game built around guild warfare. The wedding eventually happened weeks later in a safe zone, but the elaborate plans were scrapped. The original vision was destroyed by people who wanted to demonstrate their power to ruin something others cared about. New World has territory control mechanics where companies can own settlements. One company was hosting a celebration for taking their first territory. Speeches from leaders, giveaways for members, basically a guild party. A rival company infiltrated the event with spy characters, low-level alts nobody recognized. Once inside, the spies started spamming chat with insults and distractions and using emotes and effects to disrupt speeches. Then they were spreading false information about event details to confuse attendees and recording everything to mock on social media later. The celebration dissolved in chaos. The organizers couldn't control the infiltrators without kicking half the attendees and potentially hitting innocent people. The event fell apart. The rival company posted edited videos making the failed event look embarrassing and incompetent. They sabotaged it specifically to create content mocking their rivals. Event organizers and saboteurs are locked in on an ongoing arms race. Every defensive measure organizers create, saboteurs find a way around. Let me walk you through how this plays out. When communities first started organizing events, they were naive about security. They'd announce the time and location publicly, trusting the community would be respectful. Early events were wide open. The saboteurs walked right in. After getting burned a few times, organizers got smarter. They started using private locations, player housing in Final Fantasy, instanced areas, and guild halls. If you can't access the space without an invitation, saboteurs can't crash it. This worked for a while, until saboteurs realized they could infiltrate. Create a friendly alt character, befriend someone in the organizing community, get invited to the event, then reveal themselves and cause chaos from inside. So organizers started vetting attendees more carefully. You need to be vouched first. Have a history with the community. Prove you're legitimate. But this creates its own problems. Events become exclusive. Newcomers feel unwelcome. And the community becomes insular and suspicious. Saboteurs adapted by playing the long game. They'd maintained fake personas for months, building trust and reputation, just to be in position to ruin one big event. The betrayal aspect made the sabotage even more satisfying to them. Some organizers tried using private voice channels for coordination. Thinking text chat was too easy to infiltrate, saboteurs responded by recording those voice channels and leaking the information. Or they'd use the voice channels to maintain their cover while gathering intel. Games with PvP mechanics and contested zones forced organizers to choose. Hold the events in a safe area with less atmosphere and roleplay potential, or hold them in a contested area and accept the risk of attack. Neither option is great. Safe zones are limiting, but contested zones are vulnerable. For events in PvP zones, organizers started hiring protection details. Guilds or players whose job was to defend the event against attacks. This created a new dynamic where saboteurs had to fight through defenders first. Sometimes this worked, sometimes the defenders weren't enough, and sometimes the fighting itself disrupted the event even when defenders won. Some saboteurs shifted tactics entirely. Instead of direct attacks, they'd use social engineering and information warfare. They'd spread false information about event times or locations, confusing legitimate attendees. They'd impersonate organizers and send fake cancellation notices. They'd create competing fake events to split attendance. The most sophisticated saboteurs would sabotage events through bureaucracy and technical means, file false reports against the organizers, claim they're violating terms of service, try to get them banned before the event happens, or DDoS the Discord server where event coordination is happening, attack the infrastructure instead of the event itself. All of this creates an exhausting environment for organizers. Instead of focusing on creating something fun, they're spending most of their energy on security, counterintelligence, and damage control. Many communities eventually stop organizing public events because the sabotage risk isn't worth the effort. And that's exactly what the saboteurs want. They win not just by ruining events, but making communities too afraid to try hosting them at all. Event sabotage causes damage that goes way beyond the immediate disruption. Let's talk about what it does to communities long term. The most obvious damage is to the organizers. Someone spent weeks or months planning an event. They coordinated schedules, designed activities, and invited people. They created excitement. Then it's destroyed in minutes, and all that work is wasted. Most event organizers don't try after a major sabotage. The emotional exhaustion of watching your plans burn is too much to face twice. But it goes deeper than that. Event sabotage damages trust within communities. After infiltrators ruin events, communities become paranoid. New members are suspect. Social interactions become guarded. The openness and warmth that made the community special in the first place gets replaced with suspicion and security protocols. Role-playing communities are especially vulnerable to this. Role-playing requires vulnerability. You're putting creative effort and emotional investment into character and story. When that gets mocked and destroyed by saboteurs, it damages people's willingness to roleplay publicly. RP moves into private spaces or dies entirely because the public humiliation isn't worth it. There's also the recruitment impact. When outsiders see a community getting their events sabotaged, they see a community that can't protect itself or its members. New players don't join communities that look weak or dysfunctional. Saboteurs don't destroy one event, they damage the community's reputation and ability to grow. Memorial events and farewell parties carry even heavier damage because they have real emotional weight. When someone sabotages a memorial for a player who died, they're not just ruining a game event, they're violating a community's grief. People don't forget that. It creates lasting resentment and pain that goes beyond typical gaming drama. Communities that experience repeated sabotage often fracture. Some members want to continue holding events despite the risk, others think it's not worth the pain. Disagreements about how to handle saboteurs create internal conflict. The saboteurs drive wedges into the community without even being a part of it anymore. There's a chilling effect on creativity and celebration. When events keep getting sabotaged, communities stop trying to do anything special. No more weddings, festivals, or gatherings. Gaming becomes purely mechanical, raids, PvP, and farming. Because trying to create social moments makes you a target, the game becomes less human. And perhaps the worst long-term damage is the normalization of cruelty. After enough sabotage, communities become desensitized. When the next event gets attacked, people just shrug. That's what happens when you host public events. The violation becomes expected. And that's a sad state for any community to reach. Let's talk about where the responsibility lies. Are saboteurs just using game mechanics as intended? Or are developers enabling griefing by not providing protections? The saboteur's defense is always the same. They're playing by the game's rules. PvP zones allow PvP. Game mechanics allow boss training or spell effects. They're not hacking or exploiting, they're using intended systems. If developers didn't want this behavior, they shouldn't have built these mechanics. There's some validity to this argument when it comes to a pure PvP zone. If you hold an event in Cyrodiil or Wintergrass, you've accepted the risk that combat might happen. The zone's entire purpose is conflict. Expecting immunity because you're doing something social is arguably unreasonable. But context matters. There's a difference between opportunistic PvP and deliberately targeting an event specifically because it's an event. One is gameplay, the other is griefing disguised as gameplay. The mechanics might allow both, but the intent and impact are completely different. The stronger ethical case against saboteurs comes with mechanics that aren't really PvP. Boss training, visual spam, harassment through game systems. These aren't combat mechanics being used as intended. These are people finding creative ways to weaponize systems against others. Developers bear responsibility for this too. When they create mechanics that can be weaponized and those mechanics repeatedly get used for harassment, they need to address it. Patching boss training exploits, adding spam filters, creating private instance options, these are dev responsibilities. Some developers have been proactive. Final Fantasy created private estate areas specifically so role players could host events safely. Guild Wars 2 patched boss training. These are acknowledgments that player experiences matter more than mechanical purity. Other developers take the hands-off approach. It's a PvP game, deal with it. This works in fully PvP-focused games where everyone knows they're signed up for it. It fails in games with mixed audiences where some people want social experiences. The hardest cases are games with functional PvP where attacking the enemy faction is encouraged. If the game tells you Horde and Alliance are enemies, is crashing an Alliance event legitimate faction gameplay or griefing? Reasonable people disagree on this. My take is that developers need to provide tools for communities to protect themselves, private spaces for events, temporary immunity systems, better reporting tools. Communities should be able to create safe spaces within the game world when they want to. But communities also need to be realistic. If you host an event in a PvP zone and don't take precautions, getting attacked is a foreseeable outcome. That doesn't make the attackers heroes, but it means you share responsibility for not protecting your event. The ethical bright line is harassment. Using game mechanics to repeatedly target the same community's events, doxing participants, following them across location, that's not gameplay, that's harassment. And no game mechanic justifies harassment. Event sabotage is trolling that targets joy. It's finding what communities care about and destroying it specifically because they care. That's darker than most griefing we've covered. If you're sabotaging events, ask yourself what you're really accomplishing. You're not proving anything except that you're willing to ruin things others built. That's not strength, that's destruction for its own sake. And if you're organizing events, know that saboteurs win when they make you stop trying. The best revenge is continuing to create special moments despite them. Build better security, use the tools available, and don't let trolls steal your community's ability to celebrate together. Some things should be sacred, even in video games. Memorial services, weddings, community celebration, these are moments where we remember games are played by humans. Saboteurs forget that. Don't let them make you forget it too. Next week on MMO Madness Behind the Troll Mask, we're diving into combat exploits. When mechanics become weapons, you definitely don't want to miss it. If you enjoyed this episode, please like, share, and support the podcast. And if you've experienced event sabotage, email us at podcast@mmomadness.com. Until then, protect your celebrations, build your communities, and remember, joy is worth defending. I'm Boss Mode, and thanks for listening.